Hello lads, today we're going to be doing a tutorial on the smallest Cycleless 10x10 piston door. I think this one actually might be survival viable because I made some notable improvements, such as adding side sync. The top and bottom are synced during the closing. The closing is a little faster now, it doesn't have that weird delay on the last move. And the tape no longer spams the sides. So this thing is really clean as far as the smallest Cycleless thing is concerned. It's also pretty fast. It's about as fast as you can make it with this setup. And it's also fully reliable, which is pretty good. And it works in versions 1.13 and higher, which is also a very good feature of this door. There are composters, but that's just for lag reduction. You can just use furnaces if you're in 1.13. I don't know if anyone plays in 1.13, but you know. Anyway, let's just get started with this. I'm going to do a decent amount of explanation just because I don't have anyone here trolling me, so I am free to yap as I please. So this, you need a 14 by 2 by 30 space. I highlighted the floor levels here. So we're just going to get started by placing a worm of normal pistons on the bottom and sticky pistons on top. 8 of those. Like that. Then you want to have 9 quartz blocks stacked on top. It just goes all the way up to your floor level. So you'll need to dig down like 11 blocks or something. I don't know. I really don't think anyone should build this in survival, but you know, if you want to, I'll make a resources list because it's actually not that hard to do. And make sure you actually have a 10x10 frame because sometimes it's easy to lose count when you have such a high number of, or when you have such a large door. So this is going to be the frame. We're just going to have normal side pistons. Oops. And the top pistons like this, which will actually be part of this worm here, or flying machine, but don't place the normal pistons yet because you'll be placing some minecarts in this stack here. So leave one gap and then place 2 sets of observers like so. Then you'll want to grab 2 rails like this, 2 rails like this, and then you want to grab something like, I don't know, like a fence. Fence works just fine. And then grab your furnace minecarts. I mean, they can be any minecart, just probably not TNT. Actually, you know what? Let's do TNT minecarts because it'll be really funny if it blows up. I don't know if it'll blow up or not. I've never actually tested it, so I guess we'll have something to look forward to if it just so happens to troll us. So now we're going to add one more layer of downwards facing observers on top. And then you're going to have a sticky piston worm on top like this. And then what you're going to do is you're going to place blocks of redstone like so. I really hope this does not blow up. That would be really funny if it did though. Anyway, so that is going to be our flying machine. And then you can place in your normal pistons like so, because we won't really be dealing with that until the door is finished. We're just going to fill in the rest of our door frame here because why not? That's what I always do with these really skinny doors. Alright, now let's add some inputs. This door is kind of easy because you can have a dust line up here rather than on the ceiling level, which makes powering the closing pistons a lot easier. And a question that I get fairly frequently is, why is the top on this door the exact same size as the top on the 11 by 11? And that's for a very particular reason. It's because this is kind of in the middle of having these minecarts here be useful. Because if you don't have them and you shave the top, you won't be able to, you know, power as far down as you need to. But coincidentally, having the carts makes it so you can power your top worm down 1 block lower. So theoretically, you could just not have these carts and then put a dust line on the ceiling, and that would also be like the maximum amount of going down that you could do. So you can see there's no way to have carts if you have any other setup besides this, so it's effectively impossible to make it smaller with this kind of idea. So add 2 observer sliders like this. This one's a little tricky to place. If you really need to, you can kind of go in here and place them like this. That's probably the easiest way to go around about it. Anyways, let's go for the tape now. So we're going to have a folded tape as per usual, like so. Oh, there we go. Then on this side, we're going to have 2 pistons like this. And you can grab your whatever blocks. As long as they're not like immovable or redstone blocks, it's like fine. And that is the tape. And now what we're going to do first is just get started on the bottom closing, because that's like the most annoying part of the door. So I'm going to place my lever on this level right here. It's 2 blocks underneath the floor. Then we're going to have an observer facing downwards. Activator rail on top of this observer right here. Then leave a gap of 1. Then place a piston right here. Place a glass block, like so. Actually, I'll place an observer, why not? And then place a whole line of them, like this. Place 1 extra right there. And then we're going to have a 0. And then we're going to have another observer up like so. An activator rail. And then an observer, then a block with dust. And then observer, block, dust. Observer, block, dust. Then observer and dust for the last one, because we need to power this sticky piston right here, which will trigger the top closing like that. We need a block right there. Anyway, so we're going to have a note block right here and then a glass on top to silence it. 3 observers like this into a piston. Then we're going to have this right there. And then the exact same thing as on the other side. Then on top, you can just have a block instead of a dust, because we don't need it. Now, for the bottom closing, we're going to have this observer facing down, and then we're going to go into this toggle right here. And then we're going to have this observer, which is going to go into this piston right here, which is going to start the clock for the bottom. So the easiest way to place these is just kind of going under, like this. Oops, not quite. Then you want a return piston like so. Then 1 layer of observers on top. And then you'll want a lot of droppers. And if you want to not silence those droppers, you can choose to do that, but I'm going to silence the droppers. So let me just show you how to do it real quick. So you need 2 different items. As you can see, I have 2 different types of cactus. And so in the first dropper, you'll want to place normal cactus, and then in the second dropper, you'll place a different cactus, and then you'll keep alternating them. Like, I'm just going to place them all here, and the last one you'll have facing into the line. And so this one will just be cactus. You have to put just 9 items to fill up every single slot, because then the droppers will always fail. They won't move any items. This is kind of annoying and repetitive, but there's only 24 droppers in this whole door, so it's not going to be that bad. Well, 24 droppers in this thing. So we have another one right here. I will put more cactus. Wait, that's the wrong cactus. There we go, that's the correct cactus. Cactus, other cactus, more cactus, and then 1 more row. We are almost done putting the cactus. Oh, that's a different cactus. And yes, they do actually have to be droppers. You can't make them like crafters or anything, because they need to be like quasi-connectivity from above. Otherwise, this thing doesn't work properly, which is kind of weird, but it's fine, whatever. And then to finish off this clock, you just need 3 observers like that. And now to stop it, what we're going to have is a dropper right here, and you're going to need 6 cactus in here. And then hopper like so. And then we're going to take an output with this, and then once this dropper runs out from getting spammed, we're just going to have this right here. And this has some problems with updating itself, like it gets stuck on, so the only way to kind of solve that is by placing a rail here, a 2-tick repeater, and then an observer, and it updates this piston. And additionally, we need the last pulse because this kind of stops short. And so what we're going to have here is, well, just remove those. We're going to have 1 slider. We're going to have 8 observers like that. Leave 1 gap there because it doesn't matter when the slider gets returned that repulse anything. Oh, hello. Welcome. I have 8 observers like this. Slider piston right there, leaving a gap because it doesn't matter what happens when the slider gets returned. We just needed to provide 1 pulse to the sticky pistons when they're at this level to bring the normal pistons up here to get powered by the blocks. And to get that pulse at the right timing, we're going to use a log and leaf that cuts through when this observer is spat out, and a double leaf right here, and 5 observers up like that. And then you need a dust, and then redirect this dust using a tripwire hook on that observer. And that should be the entirety of the closing done. So we're just going to give that a test. You can see the top and the bottom are synced. And right now it doesn't really do anything. We'll just kind of move this back over, and then painstakingly replace all of the blocks that got displaced. Oops. Let's just... Well, that took a little while. Anyways, now the first part of the opening will be this tape right here. So we're going to start out on that. So first off, to actually trigger this tape, we're going to have it so this observer goes into this piston when the door opens. And you might be thinking, damn, what is this? This is going to spam like a million times. And I thought so too, but it turns out that powered blocks that are getting moved, like when you do this, don't actually give shape updates. So this will only give 1 pulse instead of 3. A normal block will even give 2, but an observer facing any other way will give 3. And you can see this phenomenon in action if you do placing something like a cobblestone wall next to it. Normally the observer would like attach to the cobblestone wall, but you can see since it's activated when it's moving, for some reason this wall doesn't do anything. But then once you, well, you have to update it in this direction by, moving the wall. I don't think you can, you can't update it. What can I say? Yeah, I'd have to move the observer. But anyway, this is an interesting circuit already, which is kind of funny. Anyhow, moving on, we're going to have a block right here, observer facing this way for later, and a 2-tick repeater going up into this block right here. We're going to have another block with a comparator, and then a normal piston right here, and that's what's going to be our tape control. So we're going to have 2 normal pistons like this, and then place a glass block. This one actually has to be glass, and place an upwards facing observer. I'm going to place our last minecart of the build. Grab a rail. This is very important. This has to be a cobblestone wall. I think it's like actually a few other things that would make it work. Hold on. For the content, TNT carts. Surely this will be fine. Anyway. Do not place an activator rail. Instead, place a detector rail like this. Don't use TNT minecarts, by the way. Please use furnace carts, not TNT carts. Anyway, delete that for 1 second because we need Also place a dust underneath this TNT minecart. You can see it right there. Or sorry, underneath the furnace minecart for you. And then place a 1-tick repeater right here. Then we're going to place a note block right here. And then another observer right there. And this kind of unfolds it, grabs the block, folds it again, then that grabs it up. And then for the other side, we're going to have 2 observers like so. And then we're going to have this like that, because then this won't spam if we have a toggle. And then instead of having this observer right here to update them, we're going to have this glass pane on top of this observer into a normal piston facing into this gap, and that updates it just the same. So in order to get the tape stopping mechanism, we're going to have an observer right here, a dropper facing this way, and then a hopper in here, and we're going to place 10 cactus in that dropper. Observer here, oh sorry, comparator there, an observer out of that comparator. And also if you want to have lag reduction, you can place a composter. So that should be the tape completed. And now, once the tape is done, we need to have the actual circuit itself, the top circuit go. So we're going to have this right here to activate when the tape gets disabled. And then we're going to have this right here as a toggle. So when the opening tape happens, it pulls this back down so it doesn't activate the top again. So now we have this thing going back and forth. So we need a 12-tick cycle here because these pistons and carts do a, they do a 25 game tick cycle, which is 12.5 ticks. So a 12-tick cycle ensures that the right updates get sent through these lines through the dust. And another side effect of that is that it will miss right here because you can see this observer being a 12-tick cycle. It'll be 1 pulse, then 2 pulses, and then the third one it'll miss because it'll be 1 game tick too fast. So there's that, I guess. And then on top of that, we're going to have this right here to push it back. So a 2-tick repeater on an observer facing down, and then observer facing out into a block, and then observer facing up supporting this dust right here. And to push it back, we're going to have a normal piston right here, and then that. And then to power this line right here, we're actually going to have a normal piston, and then an observer like so. And so what happens is when this observer right here gets pushed over, this moves down, and then this thing right here moves back up in 6 ticks actually, which is really cool because this thing moves the observers back in 5 ticks. And so this line will be happening 1 after these move back, which means that this will only delay by an additional 5 ticks, and then it will go on as usual instead of like derping out, which is kind of cool. Now, anyhow, we need an update for this line for whatever reason. And so that we can do with just this, because this is like this happens 1 tick before this line, so this is the exact same timing, so that's how it gets an update. And now, I think the update doesn't work because of the scheduling of this piston, and we're not going to have any pistons with this observer, as you will soon see. So we're going to have 2 observers like that, and then a dropper facing this direction, and then a composter for lag reduction. Oh, sorry, to silence the dropper. Jeez. Anyway, different application of composters. They're just the best block in the game, what can I say? Observer like that. And then finally, we're going to have a note block on this side. Silence that with a glass. Observer facing down, and then these lines will kind of cascade 1 tick at a time, which you need to have 1 tick of leeway because it's a 12-tick cycle. And now to get the clock, we're going to have an observer right here into a block, and this will actually do like 4 pulses, which is kind of insane. Since we're doing 4 pulses in 12 ticks, 1 item gets returned into the dropper every single, this is 10 items by the way. Every single 4 ticks, an item gets returned into this dropper from this hopper. So if you have on average a pulse going here every 3 ticks, it'll eventually cycle these items out. So that's what's happening there. And then just a comparator right there, which runs up into this. And that is actually the top circuit mostly done, aside from the tape catch, which is on the bottom, ironically. Oh wait, we forgot a glass. Hold on. Put this glass back, otherwise your door will fail, which is unfortunate. Don't want that to happen. Anyhow, so on the bottom, we're going to detect that the flying machine has pushed down, or the worm has pushed down all the blocks using this thing. This will do a triple pulse on the closing, so it doesn't actually do anything, because the observer will move back out again before anything happens. And this is just going to be some random delay. There's no real rhyme or reason to this. It's just kind of spamming a random delay until you get it right. So just have this like so. Sticky piston right here. Observer facing down. 4-tick repeater. Another observer. Sticky piston leaving one gap in between. Another log here because we need a 1 game tick delay for whatever reason. Leaf right there. Observer facing up. Sticky piston right there. Block. And then a 4-tick repeater like so. And then also don't forget to place a block right there to push this back at the end. So that is the entire 10x10 finished. So let's hope the TNT carts don't blow up because I know I didn't fail the wiring. So only time will tell, I suppose. So far, so good. But I worry that they will blow up during this sequence. Please. Oh my goodness. It's working, guys. I can't believe the TNT carts actually work. There you go. That's the completed 10x10. Yeah, that's about it. See ya.